Imagine facing an army where the warriors are not running away from danger. They are running directly toward you. Imagine hearing thousands of feet hitting the ground at the same time. Imagine seeing men carrying long shields and sharp spears moving with perfect discipline. And before you can even understand what is happening, your army is already surrounded. This was the nightmare many enemies faced when they came against Shaka Zulu. But here is the surprising part. Shaka Zulu was not born into great power. He was not born as the ruler of a mighty empire. He started as an outsider, a boy who faced rejection, humiliation, and hardship. Yet he would later become one of the most feared military leaders in African history. So what made him more dangerous than his enemies? Was it his army? Was it his intelligence? Or was it something far darker? Stay with me because the story becomes more shocking as we continue. Intro. In the early 19th century, Southern Africa looked very different from today. Many communities and kingdoms existed across the land. Life was difficult. People fought for land, livestock, and survival. Power could change quickly. A weak leader could lose everything. A strong leader could build an empire. Among these groups was the Zulu people. At that time, the Zulu were not a giant power. They were relatively small compared to larger groups around them. Nobody could have predicted that this small kingdom would eventually become feared across the region. And nobody expected one young boy named Shaka to change history. Part 1. The boy nobody expected. Shaka's early life was not easy. He was born to Senzangakona, a Zulu chief, and his mother Nandi. But their relationship created problems. Many people looked down on them. Young Shaka and his mother faced humiliation and rejection. Imagine being treated like you do not belong. Imagine growing up watching others insult your family. Experiences like these can break a person. But sometimes they create something else. Sometimes they create determination. Shaka learned important lessons very early in life. He learned pain. He learned survival. And he learned that weakness often attracts suffering. These lessons would later shape his thinking as a leader. Many historians believe that his difficult childhood had a powerful effect on the person he became. Because years later, when Shaka gained power, he would demand strength, loyalty, and discipline from everyone around him. And he would show little tolerance for weakness. But being strong was not enough. Shaka still needed something even more important. He needed experience. And soon, he would enter a world that would transform him forever. Part 2 Start. As Shaka grew older, he joined a powerful military force. And this is where his life began to change. Part 2. The warrior who learned from every battle 8 to 1500 hours. As Shaka grew older, life pushed him toward a new path. This path was war. At that time, powerful groups across southern Africa were competing for land, resources, and influence. Young men were expected to train and fight. Shaka eventually joined the military forces of a powerful leader named Dingiswayo. For Shaka, this was more than becoming a soldier. This was an opportunity to prove himself, an opportunity to rise above the struggles of his past, and an opportunity to become something greater. From the very beginning, people started noticing him. Not because he was the biggest man, not because he came from a powerful family, but because of how he thought. While many soldiers only focused on fighting, Shaka was studying everything around him. He watched experienced warriors. He watched leaders. He watched battle formations. He paid attention to mistakes. He paid attention to victories. He understood something important. Winning battles was not only about strength. Winning battles was also about strategy. Imagine two armies standing in front of each other. One army is larger. One army has more warriors. Most people would immediately think the larger army would win. But Shaka did not think that way. He believed intelligence could defeat numbers. He believed speed could defeat size. He believed discipline could defeat chaos. And slowly, these ideas started growing inside his mind. As time passed, Shaka gained respect among the soldiers around him. He showed courage. He showed determination. And he showed something that separated him from others. Leadership. People began noticing that he was different. He was not satisfied with doing things the old way. He constantly asked questions. Why do armies fight this way? Why do warriors use these weapons? Why should things stay the same? Many great leaders throughout history changed the world because they refused to accept old ideas. Shaka was becoming one of those people. But there was one problem. The traditional way of fighting during that time had serious weaknesses. Warriors often fought from a distance using throwing spears. Battles could last a long time. Enemies could escape. Victories were sometimes unclear. And Shaka hated this. In his mind, battles should end quickly. Battles should be decisive. Battles should leave no opportunity for enemies to recover. Soon, Shaka would begin creating ideas that would completely change warfare. Ideas that would make enemies fear the Zulu name. Ideas that would transform ordinary warriors into a powerful force. And once these changes began, Southern Africa would never be the same again. Shaka had learned from others. Now he was ready to create his own way. And his first major change would become one of the most dangerous weapons his enemies had ever seen. The man who became feared across the land. Shaka was no longer just a warrior. He was becoming a force that people could not ignore. As his influence grew, his ideas started changing the Zulu military completely. One of his most famous changes involved weapons. During that period, many warriors used long throwing spears. These weapons allowed fighters to attack from a distance. But Shaka believed there was a problem. Throwing a spear meant losing your weapon after one attack. And if the enemy survived, the fight became harder. Shaka wanted something different. He wanted warriors to move closer. He wanted speed. He wanted pressure. He wanted complete control. So he introduced a shorter spear designed for close combat. Instead of standing far away, warriors moved directly toward their enemies. This was dangerous. Very dangerous. But it was also powerful. Many enemies were not prepared for this kind of attack. Imagine expecting a distant fight, then suddenly seeing warriors charging directly toward you at full speed. Panic could spread quickly. Confusion could destroy entire armies. But Shaka did not stop there. His greatest strength was not only weapons. It was strategy. He developed battle formations that made his army move like one body. One famous strategy became known as the bullhorn formation. Part of the army attacked from the front. Other warriors moved around the sides. Another group stayed ready in reserve. Slowly the enemy became trapped. Every escape route started disappearing. Imagine standing on a battlefield and suddenly realizing there is nowhere to run. Many enemies experienced exactly that feeling. And this is why Shaka became more dangerous than his enemies. His enemies were fighting battles. Shaka was fighting with systems. His enemies were thinking about today. Shaka was thinking several steps ahead. His warriors trained hard. Discipline was extremely important. Strength mattered. Loyalty mattered. Mistakes were not taken lightly. Soon stories about Shaka and the Zulu army spread across different regions. People heard about armies being defeated. People heard about warriors moving with incredible speed. People heard about a leader who seemed impossible to predict. Fear itself became a weapon. Sometimes battles begin before swords even meet. Sometimes people lose inside their minds first. And Shaka understood that very well. But every powerful leader eventually faces another enemy. Not an army. Not a kingdom. Something much closer. And for Shaka, that enemy was beginning to appear. The fall of Shaka and the legacy he left behind. Shaka had achieved something that few people ever accomplish. The boy who once faced rejection and hardship had become one of the most feared leaders in Southern Africa. His name carried power. His army carried fear. And his influence continued growing. But history has shown something many times. The higher a person rises, the more difficult it becomes to stay at the top. As time passed, Shaka faced growing pressure. Leading a powerful kingdom was not simple. More land meant more responsibilities. More power meant more enemies. And sometimes the greatest danger does not come from outside. Sometimes it comes from people close to you. Then came a moment that deeply affected Shaka. His mother, Nandi, died. This loss hit him hard. Very hard. People around him noticed changes. Shaka was heartbroken. Reports from history suggest that his grief became extremely intense. Strict rules and harsh decisions followed. Many people around him became worried. Fear continued spreading, even among those closest to him. And slowly, tension began building inside the kingdom. The powerful leader who had defeated enemies across the land now faced problems within his own circle. Then, in the year 1828, everything changed. Shaka's own half-brothers became involved in a plot against him. The man who had survived battles and built a powerful empire suddenly faced betrayal. And in the end, Shaka Zulu was assassinated. Just like that, one of the most feared leaders in African history was gone. But although Shaka died, his story did not end. His ideas continued living. His military innovations changed warfare across the region. His leadership changed the history of the Zulu kingdom. Even today, his name is still remembered. Some people see him as a brilliant military genius. Others remember him as a harsh ruler. History often contains both light and darkness. Great leaders are rarely simple. And Shaka remains one of the most discussed figures in African history. So now we return to the question we asked at the beginning. Why was Shaka Zulu more dangerous than his enemies? Was it because of his weapons? Was it because of his army? Was it because of fear? The answer may be all of these things. Because Shaka did not simply fight battles. He changed the way battles were fought. He did not simply lead warriors. He changed the way warriors thought. And that is what made him truly dangerous. If you enjoyed this story and want more powerful African history documentaries, subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments. Which African leader should we explore next? Because history still has many stories waiting to be discovered. Shaka's rise and fall is only one part of a much bigger African story. Across this continent, history is filled with leaders, wars, and forgotten empires. Stories that were never fully told still shape the world we live in today. What you watch today is only the beginning. There are kings, warriors, and civilizations that changed history forever. Some built great empires. Some vanished without a trace. And each one carries lessons, power, and truth hidden in time. If this story opened your mind, there is much more ahead. We bring history back to life in a way you can feel and understand. No silence, no missing chapters, only real stories told with clarity. Every video will take you deeper into Africa's untold past. So stay connected if you want to explore more than just surface history. Subscribe now and be part of this journey through forgotten legends. Because the next story might change the way you see history forever.